They found his DNA inside her house. Not a theory, not a rumor circulating on Reddit at 2 in the morning. The FBI confirmed it. Unknown DNA. Someone who had no business being inside Nancy Guthrie's home left a piece of their biology behind, and it is sitting in a laboratory right now. And 69 days later, 69 days, her family still doesn't know where she is. Let that settle for a moment. The evidence exists, the science exists, the experts exist, and a 77-year-old woman's children are still waking up every morning into that same suspended nightmare, not grieving, not healed, not even close, just waiting, aching, wondering if today is the day someone finally makes the call that changes everything. Today I need to tell you about the person who is trying to force that call, and what she found when she looked at this case. Her name is CeCe Moore. If that name doesn't mean anything to you yet, it should. She is the genetic genealogist who helped bring down the Golden State Killer, a man who committed at least 13 murders and evaded law enforcement for 5 decades. 5 decades. He was a retired police officer. He knew exactly how investigations worked. He was careful. He was methodical. He thought he had won. CeCe Moore followed his DNA through a public genealogy database, built a family tree from distant relatives he didn't even know had submitted their DNA, and walked investigators straight to his front door. She has done that more than 200 times. 200 cases. Cases that other labs gave up on. Cases that went cold for decades. Cases where families had stopped hoping. And she just looked at this case, at Nancy Guthrie's case, and said something that should have every investigator in Tucson sitting up straight. Go back to the house. What you left behind in there could end this case, starting now. Here's what the FBI found, and here's why it isn't enough yet. When investigators processed the scene at Nancy Guthrie's home, they recovered unknown DNA. Genetic material that doesn't belong to Nancy, doesn't belong to any known visitor, any family member, any person with a legitimate reason to have been there. But the sample came back mixed, and I need you to understand what that means, because mixed DNA sounds like a technical problem, and it isn't just that. It's a wall. It's the difference between having your hands on something and being able to use it. When someone invades a home where a person has lived for decades, a home full of history, full of family, full of every person who has ever sat at that kitchen table or helped fix a leaky faucet, the DNA they leave behind doesn't exist in isolation. It layers on top of everything else: skin cells, sweat, saliva. All of it blended together into a sample that contains genetic material from multiple people stacked on top of each other. Traditional labs look at that and say, we can confirm someone unauthorized was here. We can see them in the data, but we cannot isolate them. We can't pull one voice out of a room where 5 people are all speaking at once. And without a clean, isolated profile, no match in CODIS. Without a match, no suspect. Without a suspect, no warrant. Without a warrant, no arrest. The entire chain of justice in this case is hanging on one thing, one clean DNA sample, and right now they don't have it. 69 days, 2 months and 8 days, and the chain is still broken at that exact link. But here is where this case takes a turn that made me stop and just sit with it for a minute. CeCe Moore didn't look at this situation and say it's complicated. She didn't hedge. She looked at it the way she's looked at 200 cases that everyone else had written off, and she said, the answer is in that house. You just haven't found the right sample yet. Think about the night this happened. The person who took Nancy Guthrie did not float through her home. He came in through the back door. He walked through rooms. He touched walls, furniture, door frames. He breathed in enclosed spaces. He was present, physically, biologically present, in a way that leaves traces on surfaces whether he wanted it to or not. One doorknob in a back hallway that only he touched that night. One window frame. One surface that Nancy herself never used, that no family member or maintenance worker had reason to contact. That's all it takes. One clean surface, one uncontaminated sample. And Moore is saying those surfaces haven't all been swabbed. There are parts of that house that haven't been tested. There are objects sitting right now, undisturbed, possibly still carrying his DNA, clean, isolated, readable, and nobody has gone back to look. She said it directly. Go back to that house. Re-swab. Look for a rootless hair. Look for surfaces he touched that no one else did. The evidence is still there. She knows this because she's been here before. She's solved cases where the crime scene had been sitting untouched for 20 years. She's extracted DNA from objects that looked like they had nothing left to give. She said flatly, DNA is hardy. If it's there, it doesn't just disappear. And then she said something that stopped me completely. There is a new DNA analysis machine coming to market, a machine that does something no technology in the history of forensic science has been able to do. It can separate mixed DNA samples, the exact kind of sample the FBI already collected from Nancy Guthrie's home, the kind that came back from the lab marked unusable, the kind that hit a wall and stalled this investigation for weeks. This machine can take that same mixture, the one already sitting in a lab right now, pull it apart at the molecular level, and isolate individual profiles from within the blend. Moore said this case could be the first in the DNA world to be solved by this technology. Not one of the first, the first. That is how new this is. That is how close to the edge of what science can do we are right now. And the evidence it needs to work? It's already collected, already preserved, already sitting in a lab, already containing the genetic blueprint of the person who walked into that house and stole a mother from her family. The FBI sent a sample to a lab. The lab said, we can't use this, and everyone moved on. But nobody stopped to ask, what if the problem isn't the evidence? What if the problem is the tool? Because the tool just changed, and the evidence hasn't moved. And it gets harder to sit with from here, because it's not just CeCe Moore trying to break this open. Private DNA labs across the country have reached out to investigators. They've watched this case. They've seen the family put up over $1.2 million in reward money, one of the largest reward packages in Arizona history, still unclaimed. They've seen the investigation stall, and they've made contact. They've offered their equipment, their expertise, their staff. Some have offered to work this case for free, not for publicity, not for a fee, for free, because they have the tools and they can see what's in front of them. And as of this recording, nobody has called them back. Not one lab, not one call returned. I don't say that to attack anyone. I say it because Nancy Guthrie's family deserves to know that there are people with the capacity to help who are sitting by a phone that isn't ringing. The technology exists. The experts are ready. The evidence is collected. The labs are standing by. And 69 days have passed. There is a pattern in this case that I keep coming back to, and I cannot let it go. Every thread leads back to the same place. The ransom notes, back to someone who had been inside that house. The reconnaissance visits on January 11th, back to someone who had studied that house. The backdoor entry, back to someone who knew the layout of that house. And the DNA, back to someone who left their genetic signature inside that house. Everything circles back to those walls. Everything. The answer to this case is not buried in a landfill somewhere. It is not locked in a memory someone refuses to share. It is encoded in a Bitcoin wallet no one can crack. If CeCe Moore is right, and her record across 200 solved cases says she is almost never wrong, the answer is inside that house, on surfaces that haven't been swabbed, in samples that haven't been run through the right machine. on a doorknob or a window frame or a piece of tape on a lock that hasn't been touched since the night she was taken. The evidence has been waiting since February 1st. It is still waiting. This is a woman who made tamales and went to church and told her daughter on national television that Tucson felt laid back and gentle. A woman whose children described her as courageous and beautiful, and whose grandchildren are growing older every day without her in the room. Cameron and Christine said they cannot celebrate her life yet. They cannot grieve. They can only ache. 69 days of aching. The technology to end that ache exists. The experts willing to deploy it exist. The evidence, his evidence, the biological signature of the man who did this may still be sitting on a surface inside that house, patient and preserved, waiting for someone to go back and find it. One doorknob, one window frame, one surface in the back of a house in Tucson that nobody thought to test. That might be all the distance left between this unsolved case and the moment that family finally gets to breathe again. The FBI tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you know anything at all from the night of February 1st, from the evening of January 11th, from any moment that felt wrong in that neighborhood, make the call. Because somewhere in Tucson, a mother is still waiting to be found, and her family is still waiting to bring her home.